Joining us now, host of the Independent Americans podcast and founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America, Paul Rieckhoff. John Nichols and Denver Riggleman are still with us. You know, I thought, Paul, that you were the perfect guy to talk to about Graham. I thought he'd be right up your alley. Tell me what you think.
I think he's impressive, and I think he's going to be popular. I think he's going to be exciting, but I think he's going to be, like so many others, dragged down by the Democratic brand. And in a place like Maine, which is especially independent, he's in a crowded Democratic primary that he's got to get through. And there's a real opportunity to run as a legitimate independent without the Democratic baggage. We see.
So why wouldn't he run as an independent?
Because a lot of them think they can't win. I think that's the honest answer. He may not say that out loud, or he may not say it at all, but I think they don't think they can run without the party. But in Maine, folks like Angus King, the senator, have shown that you can. There's now a Republican former state senator, Rick Bennett, who left the Republican Party and is running as an independent. We've talked about Dan Osborne and Todd Achilles. The reality is that every day, 10,000 people in America leave the Democratic Party and Republican Party. It's worse for the Democrats than for the Republican, but the future is not partisan. It's independent, and that's what people are looking for.
John, what do you think?
I think Paul makes a very important point, although I will suggest that at the end of the day, Mainers will be voting in an election in 2026 between the candidates that they have. There will be very likely a Democratic nominee and a Republican nominee. If there was a strong independent, that independent might do very well. If it is a Democrat versus Republican race, then we're looking at a candidate here who has a message that I think is quite viable. And I'm hearing it across the country. One of the things that's really significant at this point is that the Democrats are attracting a lot of people into their primaries who are hypercritical of the Democratic Party. They're folks who literally say, look, I'm going to run as a Democrat because that's the alternative to Trump and the Republicans. But I don't love these people. And that's going to be very interesting in how they thread that needle. If they do it right, and I've seen people do it right around the country, I mean, independent, strong Democrats who go their way and do very well. I think in some senses you could even say that that's what Mamdani is doing in New York. Then they may do very well. On the other hand, if they're kind of saddled with what the Democrats have done in Washington so far, that could be a lot tougher.
Let me play a little bit of why he thinks Susan Collins is the weakest, in his words, that she's ever been.
I think the charade is wearing thin. In 2020, there still were Democrats in Maine who viewed Susan Collins as a moderate. That's gone now. That doesn't exist. Democrats in Maine, and frankly, look, I have a lot of friends who are Republicans, and they think that she's putting on a show. They think that she's up there representing establishment and corporate interests and that she doesn't really stand for anything. I think they're all right.
I think he's right. I think Susan Collins is weak, and I think she's weak most of all because it doesn't appear that she stands for something. The question is, will Mainers pick a Democrat over her? And can he even make it through the primary? I don't know if that's the case, and I will tell you, if I were going to run the numbers for a veteran, I've been recruiting independent veterans to run. We see in state after state, from Idaho to South Dakota to Nebraska, that independents do better in general elections than Democrats or Republicans, and especially among younger voters, 60% of new registrants are registering not as Democrats or Republicans, but as unaffiliated and independents. And that's where the real future is, people who say no to all parties.
That's interesting, because Denver, that's the question I wanted to ask you. You're in this unique position of having been a part of the Republican Party, the new wing of the Republican Party, and then leaving it, and also being affiliated now with Democrats and the pushback against Donald Trump. How do you untangle, how do you understand the drop in Democratic registration?
I think that most Democrats think they're bringing a pool noodle to a bar fight. I mean, I think that's really part of it, right? There's this almost this weakness that they're seeing in that. And to Paul's point, I've been asked to run as a Democrat and a Republican now for big office here in Virginia on the congressional side and also statewide. And I'm really leaning towards independent. I think there is a time. I think we've come full circle, Katie. I think when you're talking about gerrymandering and what's going on, right, I think people are like, enough of this, right? This two-party system is so corrupt. We have to have something different. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. If it's me and I'm in Maine, I'm running as an independent. He might be a strong candidate, but but how's the party going to react to him? What's going to happen, right? And the Democrats do have an awful reputation, as the Republicans do, which is still befuddling to me, Carrie, that the Republicans don't have a worse reputation. I'm not going to lie. But as far as being an independent, I think at this point, if I were to run again, I think I would run as an independent and I would go for it. And I think I can actually bridge both of those sides based on my, my experience with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. But here's the point, too. In certain states, it's much tougher to run as an independent. But I think the Maines and the Virginians and things like that, I think we can do it. And when I run next time, I'll run as an independent.
That is a good point. But Maine does have clearly a record of voting independent. Look at Angus King, as Paul mentioned. But Angus, caucuses with the Democrats. I mean, what's the difference between Angus King and a Democrat? Honestly.
I think there's a big difference, especially to voters. I mean, I don't know if Angus King could win as a Democrat, just as a starting point.
Yeah, but I think caucuses with them. When does he break with the party?
He was on my show a few weeks ago. We had this conversation. It's interesting because his son is actually running for governor as a Democrat. So there's a difference even generationally within the King family. But I think he views himself as truly independent of the party bosses, of the party rhetoric, of the party policies. And he does buck his party at times. And I think this is maybe the first step toward breaking the duopoly, is independents who caucus with one or the other. Many of the folks who are running now as independents, like Dan Osborne and others, are saying they won't caucus with either. And I think if you can get 2 or 3 of them into the Senate, then you have a fulcrum that can truly change what has been a monopoly, duopoly, for decades.